Dear friends, today we are here to discuss a very serious issue. Israeli filmmaker Nadav Lapid has recently made a statement that the movie The Kashmir Files is vulgar propaganda. And this was made on a public forum. The statement was made on a public forum. So, to discuss this, joining us today are Ashwini Trakru, who is Vice President of Kashmiri Pandit Association in New South Wales. We also have well-known academic Sarah L. Gates with us, and we have the editors of the Australia Today, Jita Jay Bharadwaj and Dr. Amit Sarwa from Melbourne. Thank you all of us for joining us today. Amit, I want to start with you first. Tell us what this whole issue is about.
So I think every year Indian government under the Ministry of Culture organizes a very big international film festival. I think it showcases around 400 films in 5 or 6 different categories, and it celebrates cinema basically in Goa, and it has a very vibrant film market where Australian filmmakers also participate. And each year, in certain categories, awards are distributed for best film. So I think in the international category, you had around 5 or 6 judges, and the chair of the judging panel for international films was an Israeli filmmaker, Nadav Lapid. And he said that, out of the all 15 films that were nominated for the international prize, we were all of us disturbed and shocked by the 15th film, the Kashmir Files, that felt to us like a propaganda, vulgar movie, inappropriate for an artistic competitive section of such a prestigious film festival. So there are a couple of things here that we need to deconstruct. First, that out of the 15 films, he specifically made an argument against the Kashmir Files. Usually when the jury sits, they talk about the artistic sensibility. So he's very smart when he makes his comment. He talks about disturbed and shocked, not because of the atrocities that the movie shows against Kashmiri Hindus, but he was disturbed and shocked because he felt that this is a propaganda movie, and we'll discuss that part later. And then he says that it was vulgar, inappropriate for artistic competition. So he's also denouncing the fact that Kashmir Files is a well-made movie up to the standards of an international film festivals. Now, there are 2 things to note here, that international films, when we talk about film, we have 2 categories of film. One is the Bollywood, Tollywood, Collywood style movies, the action, drama, melodrama kind of movies. And when we talk about international film festivals, there is a certain different kind of consumption of cinema, and this one is more towards left-leaning cinema, art house, right? So if you look at the Kashmir Files, it's somewhere in an alternate cinema space where it is successful as a popular movie, not just in India but an international circuit, but it is also leaning towards the artistic side. So he's basically complaining that this movie this movie shouldn't be in the international film festival. So this is the whole scandal that has erupted, and people are angry because the film festival is organized by the Indian government. So look, India is a democratic country. Film festivals are a democratic space. Everyone has a right to speak what's on their mind. But the other members of the jury have recently just tweeted, I think few hours ago, that they at no point said these things. So these are Nadav Lapid's personal opinions, where he says, we were all of us disturbed and shocked. Maybe everyone was disturbed and shocked by watching the movie, but not in the same line as Nadav Lapid, right? So he's handpicking, he's cherry picking his thoughts, and he's now, to me, as an academic, as a journalist, and as a film critic, it appears like a shoot and scoot statement. We know that he's not going to stay there. So he just made a statement to make his left Islamist audience, whoever is his audience, not the Kashmir File audience, but his audience for his words, happy, and then he will just leave the space. So he's a
Right.
celebrated
Right.
filmmaker. I'll come to that, Pallavi.
Yeah. Now let me go to Ashwini Prakru. Ashwini, when you hear people make these kind of statements, how does it make you feel? What are your emotions? If you could share with us. I mean, of course, there are Holocaust deniers also in the world, in spite of everyone
Yep.
knowing what
Yep.
happened. So similarly, there are people
Certainly.
who deny the ethnic cleansing and genocide that happened. About your feelings and your comments on this.
I mean, certainly, see, this is something which is very close to our heart as a community, and personally to me as well, because is not something that I have heard from my great grandfathers, or passed from generation to generation. This is something that I have lived. Uh, I was born and brought up in Kashmir, have been there during the insurgency period, during the peak of insurgency, and for me, it was something that I used to endure day in day out, because I used to. My school was at a place which is very well known is Lal Chowk, the center of Kashmir, and coming and going back from school, sometimes there used to be bomb explosions, which was part of day-to-day life. Not only that, some of the people that I know very closely were killed. Some of the people were threatened. So I mean, I don't know how to react to somebody like this. Probably he has been living under a stone, and he's not the only one. As you rightly mentioned, there are people who deny Holocaust. So how do we deal with these kind of people? Do we just ignore them, or do we kind of go head on head with each individual? Because there are so many of them. There are rational people in this world, and there are irrational people in this world, right? I don't know, of late I have seen that the quantity of irrational people has increased drastically. Somebody who denies what has happened to Kashmiri Pandits. I mean, certainly, as I mentioned, that somebody who has been living under a stone. So, and he is an intellect. I don't know him. This is the first time I've heard about him. So the fact that somebody who is a movie maker, and if he has done a lot of movies, usually gets into the detail of things, right? So this certainly is a comment that he has made to appease his bosses, whosoever are his bosses. I don't know, was he paid for this? I don't know what was the hidden agenda for this, but certainly, somebody, some Tom, Dick, and Harry making some comment is he aware about facts, real. He have the somebody is very disturbing. And as I said,
Uh, Jay, I think
we
we.
ignore him or on because
I think, yeah,
doing
we've lost your audio there. There's some disturbance. We'll come back to you, Ashwini. Jay, I want to get you in this conversation. Your initial thoughts.
See, it's more than disturbing. I mean, the first thing in the morning when I heard uh, him saying what he said, I just don't want to even repeat it. It takes the pain. It multiplies my pain. I mean, my forefathers, my brothers, my sisters, my relatives have faced what they have faced in Kashmir. Now, suddenly somebody stands on a stage, and that too provided by Government of India, and says that a film showcasing our pain is vulgar and propaganda is just not done. I have no idea how to react to this person. I mean, with all due respect, he seems to be an idiot who just want to deny. These people have no place in a intellectual conversation, who can't just go and do their due diligence before opening their mouth. This is what I understand by whatever remark he has made.
right.
Yeah. Now, Sarah, let me come to you. Your thoughts on this, because we see this often. People just make any comment, and these are not random people. So what is it? Do you think this is ignorance? This is agenda driven? What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's clearly an extension of the propaganda that was built up around the Kashmir Files to deny the ethnic cleansing and the genocidal intention against Kashmir Pandits. There's nothing in the film that I haven't heard for the years leading up to the film from the Kashmir Pandit community themselves, that they face this. The stories are actually told by the pundits in their online blogs, their websites, their books. And I do want to remind one of the people who was part of this propaganda, Rahul Pandita, who made a film that was rejected by the Kashmir Pandit community. But his book, Our Moon Has Blood Clots, will tell you the same stories that you'll see in the Kashmir Files. So it's quite a surprise to see a politicised propaganda machine built up against the Kashmir Pandit community, and that certain members of that community have had a vested interest in elevating and amplifying that propaganda. Perhaps they have some grievance with the Modi government. Perhaps they don't like that the Modi government has supported the film. And perhaps they've just used the platform of the Modi government to express their freedom to criticise the government and to criticise what they call a propaganda machinery. But unfortunately, we've only ever heard criticism of the Indian government. We've never heard criticism against Islamist extremists, state-sponsored terrorists. We haven't heard criticism against Pakistan. We haven't heard criticism from the United Nations about the role of Islamists in recruiting children to commit their violence in support of these terrorist separatist movements. We don't hear the other side of the story, and it's shameful. It's a scourge on humanity, and it really needs to stop, because every person has a right to justice, and the Kashmir Pandit community have the same rights that everybody else have. They're not the Brahminical supremacists that they've been made out to be. They don't get their voice heard from the scholarship on their own culture and traditions of Kashmir Shaivism. We don't hear a word about this community on the academic database, except for some ridiculous white supremacist aligned Aryan race theories. It's really quite disgusting. And having known and worked with this community, they are the most gentle, sweet, humble, the most beautiful culture that anyone could ever imagine. And for somebody who's interested in yoga, the philosophy of Kashmir Shaivism answers every question. More people should be understanding this community. They have a lot to offer the entire world. So to have their voices shut down like this in this appalling way, it's actually quite terrifying. I mean, who feels so entitled to make such opinions? And that too, using the words we, as if he spoke for the entire jury body, and then they've had to distance themselves from it. I mean, I don't believe that he was speaking his own personal opinion if he used the words we so freely. It sounds a lot like he was speaking on behalf of the committee, and they need to answer to that. They need to explain why he used the words we to call this film a propaganda film. It clearly wasn't. Anybody who's been reading about this, anybody who's been studying this and reading about this for the past few decades knows those stories off by heart. There's nothing new in those stories.
Yeah. Amit, I would like to come back to you that why do you think, like, when we speak about this movie, at the end of the day, it is a movie, it's not a documentary. I mean, isn't this kind of subversion that you don't even want someone to reflect the truth even in a cinematic fashion? And as Sarah has said, that this is not something that's unknown. I mean, there are terrorist organizations operating from Pakistan, like Lashkar-e-Taiba, Harkatul Mujahideen, Jaish-e-Mohammed, which are banned terrorist organizations by the United Nations, by India, and even Australia. This racism has happened is a well-known fact. So why is this? I mean, it's really strange. This kind of a reaction. So your thoughts on that, as someone who works in the creative side as well.
Yep. Thanks, Pallavi. And first of all, I'd like to thank Sarah for her, nuanced argument about Kashmir. One of the things that's kind of funny, because Nadav Lapid, in one of his recent interviews, so he has been making movies. So I'll tell you more about his kind of filmmaking, who Nadav Lapid is. So if you don't understand who the filmmaker is, you won't be able to understand where his comments are coming from. And as Ashwini said, that he has never heard of this filmmaker, right? Because he's not a very popular filmmaker. He's not like Steven Spielberg, who's making Schindler's List about the Holocaust. So he makes movies about, he makes anti-establishment kind of movies about Israel. He has served as a soldier. And when he got, when he left the army service, I think he ran to Paris, and then he has been making movies about his own experiences as a Jew and with Israeli establishment. So he made Policeman, he made Synonym, and the most recent movie, then he made a movie called The Kindergarten Teacher, which took him 1.5 years or almost 2 years to make. The latest movie that he made was, he wrote the movie in 2 weeks and made it in 18 days. And guess what the topic of the movie is? It's a pro-Palestinian movie, right? So if you're making a movie like The Kindergarten Teacher, if you see his movie, it's about some 5-year-old poet. It takes almost 1.5 years. But if he's making a movie about Palestine, he can finish the movie in 20 days, basically 25 days. And guess what used to be shot in 25-40 days in India? C-grade Bollywood movies, Mithun Chakrabarti and others, right? So you don't need to think about it because you have already thought about it. You have already thought what your audience want. So his latest movie is about, this Palestinian girl and all the things surrounded him. And he as an actor, and his actors go on long monologue talking about anti-Israel. So this is where the filmmaker is coming from. Now you get it, his anti-Israel, pro-Palestine, that kind of thing. When they talk about India and Kashmir, they talk about India and Kashmir using the same ideas, that India is an occupying force. This is the left Islamist dialogue in the West, that India is an occupier. They start from the position where Indian armies were sent. They do not talk about when the Pakistanis attacked, how Hari Singh signed. So that is left into the history books, not to be talked about. They don't talk about how Islamist terrorists attacked Kashmiri Hindus. They don't talk about the exodus. They talk about when Jagmohan and the Indian armies was, sent. So they talk about from a certain point where everything has been done, and they don't want you to reflect on that. Now, funnily, and it's very ironical, that in one of his interviews about his latest movie, he says, and I'm quoting him, right? I'm not making this up. I think that art or cinema should speak to audiences on a different level. They can bring change by shaking an audience member to their core. Now, I really like the point that Sarah made about another book and a movie, Shikara. I think she was referring to Shikara, the movie. The filmmaker said, I'm going to present. Throughout my life, I have only seen romanticized versions of Kashmir in movies, serials, Kashmir Ki Kali, the famous movie, the famous song on Shikara. And turmoil was still going on in Kashmir, remember? So this was the side that was hidden from Indians as well. Indian government, so maybe not the government, but the filmmakers, in news we used to hear, so specifically Doordarshan, so it's not the Indian government was hiding anything, but the media, popular media, was hiding all the, bad side of Islamist terrorism in Kashmir. So one of the things you should see is that he wants, when he is making a film, he wants to shake up the audience, to think, but when an Indian filmmaker does the same thing, they don't like it, right? So they try to denounce him as Hindutva, Hindus. And if you look at Vivek Agnihotri's, graph as a filmmaker. He has been making different kind of films. He has been experimenting a lot. I think he's the one who made Ranjana as well, right? The JNU movie, and he has made some other movies as well. And he's an economist by education, so he has been experimenting. So it's not like, and he's a filmmaker who got hold of an idea. He has an epiphany kind of movement, and he put together his film on a very low budget. It ended up earning 400. So the point was not to make money, to win awards, but to tell the story of Kashmiri Hindu people to the world. That was his point. And he's doing the same thing that I just quoted, that Nadav Lapid wants the filmmakers to do. So what's wrong in Vivek Agnihotri making a really disturbing and shocking film that is asking people on both sides to question, right? And as Sarah said very aptly, that it is only the one side that we have to question all the time, but the other side is always given, no pun intended, a green signal, right?
That's right.
So it's always.
Jay, I would like to come to you, Jay. Jay, I would like to come to you. That see, I mean, it's one thing to critique a film. It's one thing to express your opinion about films. Anybody can make any opinion in democracies. But what happens here is that there seems to be an agenda to deny the truth. That is very different from making a critique on a creative, movie or anything. And I would like to get you that this is quite toxic in a way, that this is not just an opinion on a movie. And what do you have to say about that? It's absolute all the time. And see, that's the thing, that, in a way that there are, in some things, there are no two sides. I mean, Holocaust happened. In the same way the Kashmiri ethnic cleansing and genocide happened. So you can debate about how it was done and the history and stuff like that. But some things cannot be denied because they happened in front of your eyes. So I think this is a very serious issue, that in the name of and as I said, you can express your opinion. As you people know, I believe in absolute freedom of speech. But here I think the subversion of the truth rather than critiquing a movie. So Jay, your thoughts?
See, I'll kind of borrow this a dialogue from the same movie we are talking about, the Kashmir Files, and it's in Hindi. They say that सरकार तो आपकी हो जाएगी मगर सिस्टम हमारा ही रहेगा. Right. You might be in the government, but we will still hold the system. And this episode purely showcases that line in the movie, that this person, it's not Nadav himself saying this. This is part of a global design,
right.
And he's one of the smallest part, and he's playing his role in the movie. If it was a Bollywood movie of 3 hours, he's a character who's playing his role and amplifying and trying to give people emanation to showcase. Yes, see, we are telling you that it's a propaganda. Now one of the renowned journalists, renowned filmmaker is saying the same thing. You might be a filmmaker, you might be knowing how to put a camera light, how to edit the film, good. But are you an expert in history? Are you the person who can tell us what has happened to us? Do you have any agency on that? This is, and I will also criticize the government of India, who are responsible for putting together this show in Goa, where he was standing on the dais. He was the chairman of the jury for that section of the movies, and he could say whatever he wanted to say. As much as I know as a journalist, I have covered a lot of film festivals. The jury deliberation is approved by the jury. Each and every member of the jury has to sign the deliberation which they came as the final version of their talk. And if this person is claiming what he has claimed on behalf of we, the jury members or the committee, and on the just in 5 hours, other jury members come out and say that this is not true,
Denied.
then uh, we have to really ask to the organizers. We have to really question the organizers that they are not following the due diligence one and the protocols which are have been laid for so many years. Uh, Second thing, this is one part. Now we have to follow up what happens after today. Uh, After today, the references will be made in Wikipedia that XYZ filmmaker
Right.
has said this about this movie. Articles will be written that established fact that Kashmir Files is a propaganda. Nothing like this has happened to Kashmiri people there. The worry is this is the start of a cycle or a chain reaction which we'll be seeing in next 3 months or so, and then after 5 years it will be established fact. That's how
Right.
this whole churning works. I mean, I have been writing on this, that you reference what Pallavi has said. I will reference it in my article, what I have written in my article. Sarah will write in her book, and then Ashwani will write a paper. It will be read in one of the prominent universities. Then Amit Sawal will compile everything and say, oh, this is the fact. And after a while, Amit Sawal's students will be studying it in the research paper in the university. And everything is based on what I falsely claimed.
Right.
This is the cycle which need to be
Yeah.
broken. And this same system aapka hai, you need to break that system. Unless we are able to break that system or occupy that system, I think nothing will change. Pallavi?
Yeah, let me just come back to Ashwini. Ashwini, I want to ask you, if you could just tell the people that this is not about being against someone. This is about atrocities that your community faced. You have lived through this.
Yep.
This is not even something which is in history that it happened 500 years ago. This is your lived experience. So if you could just tell the audiences what the truth is beyond this controversy.
So I think it's very difficult to summarize, but I can give reference of the Kashmir Files movie, and we as a Kashmiri Hindus, Kashmiri Pandits are highly indebted to this person, to this individual and the entire team who worked on this. Because if you ask us, this is the first time that somebody has put some serious effort to showcase the plight of Kashmiris and showcase the atrocities that were caused on us. And I can tell you, and I am more than happy to give it in writing, that every single shot, every single dialogue, every single incident that was shown in that movie is a fact. And it's not only me, you can reach out to any other person who has lived there. Forget about people, who just throw statements here and there. Forget about that. Any Kashmiri person will not deny whatever has been shown in the Kashmir Files, because in Australia itself, Pallavi, you have met some of the families here, and there are n number of stories that each one of us can tell you. I also want to bring one other point, which all of you will agree to it. Giving back the reference of the Kashmir Files movies. Forget about the world. I mean, there have been people who were born and brought up in India coming to us and telling us as Kashmiris that, hey, this is the first time that we realized that the intensity, the gravity of the situation that was actually happening in Kashmir. Because I think, Jai, you were referencing to that, all the information did not go to the masses. And unfortunately, in those days, you didn't have these 24/7 news channels. You had very limited source of, information that used to go to people. And obviously, government had control on what information should go out of Kashmir and what should stay within Kashmir, right? So there are people, forget about the world. Right now, I think after this movie, there are people all over the world who have understood what has happened in Kashmir. But in India, I'm telling you, people down south, people in east, forget about east, people in Delhi, which is an adjoining state, did not fully understand or comprehend the actual gravity of situation and the atrocities caused on Kashmiris. So, it has taken time, but we are so happy. We are so glad that finally the truth has come out. It will take some more time for people to absorb it, for people to understand. But certainly, now truth cannot be hidden. The atrocities, the genocide caused on Kashmiri Hindus will not be forgotten, will be remembered. And certainly, we are certainly seeking to some justice, for our community here, and I would like to conclude by saying that, people like you who have been highlighting this and keeping this alive, this discussion alive, we are not asking for anything. We are not asking for bloodshed. All we are asking is that people need to have sympathy to what has happened with us, right? And that's the minimum we are asking, and that's the minimum
Yeah.
what people can do for us, right?
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I would again like to get Sarah in. Now, Sarah, the strange thing is that people, who comment on this, or people have absolutely no understanding of, even recent history. For instance, India was amputated because some people, some communal people, didn't want to live in a secular country. They wanted an Islamic state, and Pakistan is an Islamic state. And but most people who even seem to be students of history, or claim to know history, they are not aware of these facts, and one cannot understand terrorism from Pakistan unless one understands how that state was created. And of course, it's a fact that the terrorism, I mean, it's as I've mentioned earlier, that there are terrorist organizations like Lashkar-e-Taiba, Harkatul Mujahideen, and Jaish-e-Mohammed, that are banned terrorist organizations that have been doing terrorism in Kashmir and other parts of India as well. Other parts of, Osama bin Laden was found in Abbottabad, which is a cantonment area of the Pakistani army. I mean, the world knows about that. But it just, it's very baffling how people don't join the threads. And of course, Kashmiri terrorism affected everyone. It started with the ethnic cleansing of Hindus there and Jews there, and then it affected everyone: Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, who were there. But it's just that when one reads about commentary or so-called experts, or people commenting on India, people just don't have this very basic knowledge, which doesn't just affect India, it affects the world. Terrorism is a problem in the world. Sarah?
Well, you can't understand a community if you don't listen to them. The first thing people need to do is to actually spend some time and get to know the Kashmir Pundit community, and to listen to them, because each one of them will tell you the same stories. We've already been over this, but even you have to ask the question as to why Rahul Pandita put the same things in his book that are shown in the Kashmir Files, and then turned his back on his community and spoke against the Kashmir Files. These type of questions aren't being posed. Why would a celebrated filmmaker turn their back on another celebrated filmmaker over the screening of a film that shows the same stories that he has himself told? There's more to this than meets the eye. You can't allow people to have self-determination purely based on their religion. If they argue that it's an Indigenous self-sovereignty movement, Kashmir Pandits are also Indigenous. Kashmir Muslims are not Indigenous unless Kashmir Pandits are also Indigenous, which takes it back to a lot of theories which are being used against Hindus by the same lobbyists, stating that they're all invaders that came in during the Vedic era to colonize the Indigenous inhabitants. This is a scrambled mess of word salad. The problem is, if you tell this story of the Kashmir Pandits, it unravels every other story. So the whole agenda of keeping the global South balkanized and disempowered to attain or to uphold the dominance of the global North and the West, these are questions that require deep analysis. Why on earth are these academic institutions sponsoring, endorsing, funding the type of research that we're hearing about Kashmir? which makes absolutely no sense. Once you start to actually unpack it, it makes no sense at all. Kashmir Pandits are the Indigenous people and the Indigenous culture. They are culturally and ethnically, genetically Indigenous, and they have had 7 such ethnic cleansings through the past 700 years. This story was documented by the colonizers themselves. The cultural colonizers have documented this story as a kind of conquest. We're not making this up. This is all documented. This is not some Brahminical supremacist trying to rewrite some revisionist history. The facts are there. And people need to understand that if people are funding research which is not built upon facts, which tells a story that's easily refutable and self-contradictory, they need to start asking questions as to who is endorsing this? How do these people have so much power? And why is it that the Kashmir Pandit community has remained voiceless for 30 years until now?
Yeah, and I will come back to you, Amit. That Sarah made a point. I mean, a lot of the history that is taught even today, I think in India, at least till when we were in school, was written by the colonizers. I mean, India would probably be one of those unique countries that you gain independence from your colonizers, and you don't write your real history. You just keep reproducing and teaching the same thing that the people who colonized you wrote for you. And a lot of there's a flat Earth society as well. So people can come up with any theories, and people can talk about anything. I mean, of course, it's a free country, and one has the freedom to express any opinion. It gets serious when people who have delusionary ideas start getting a seat at positions of power. I mean, I think that's when it becomes a really serious issue, and it needs to be challenged. And anything, I mean, you first ethnically cleanse a community and then talk about expression of what you want. That's not really honest. So Amit, I'll come to you, your concluding remarks.
Yeah, I think I agree with Sarah. Somewhere academia, especially the Western academia, that goes by different names, and they try to put Indian civilization in compartments. South Asia, Indian subcontinent, and we use these categories as well. It's somewhere to blame, because that's where the money is coming from, right? So without research money, you won't produce. So they have a typical, they mention when you're applying for funds that this is the kind of research we want. So the outcome has already been decided. Now you just have to put the puzzle pieces in a way that it satisfies. And if I agree that the kind of say Babar Nama, Aurangzeb Nama, Shahjahan Nama, all these are historical texts that were written during the time. So these are like text history books written when the Mughal kings were actually attacking the places, and they actually say these number of temples demolished, these number of Hindus killed, these number of Hindus spared, converted. So they keep a record of everything. Now this has been selectively used by Western academia to talk about things when it comes to satisfying, and it has been going on for a very long time. And I would like to make one point, that history should not be written to appease a particular community, either Hindus, Christians, Muslims. History should tell facts, like journalism.
Right.
Historians are not activists.
Absolutely.
Journalists are not activists. Their job is to tell the truth as it happens. And I have seen that a lot of historians who talked about truth were told the facts, were told that these are loony Hindutva people. They were marginalized for a very long time. So Meenakshi Jain, now Vikram Sampath is facing the same thing. J. Sai Deepak, Sai Deepak writes about constitution, how constitution was made, and how this India has a very big problem, and it is the problem of cult of personality. Gandhi, Nehru, even Savarkar, instead of the ideas that these people reflected and how to use these ideas to progress for the common good peace, we kind of create these bigger icons, even Vallabhbhai Patel, and then celebrate these guys. While these people would not have liked the similar cult of icon, they would have preferred people to follow their ideologies, use the best that they had to give. And this has been happening in history as well. So if you look at one of the American historians, she talks about, but Aurangzeb didn't kill that many Hindus, he could have killed more, right? Or something like on that logic. And it defies logic, as Sarah pointed out. It's a complete mess that they have created, because they have been growing around in circles so much that now they do not know the origin point. So if we were the Aryans who came, then how can these? And I would like to go back, because I was recently researching for my novel, and I was using a lot of missionary texts specifically to see how Christianity came to India, and particularly Kashmir. At one point, now we can either take these texts at face values, or we can question them, right? So at this point, I'm just taking it at face value. I can also critique it. The missionary says, and he was sent as, like, they never went as direct missionaries to convert people. They went as doctors, teachers at that point of time, because conversion was still banned, right? Wherever the Mughals were ruling, they were not directly converting. So he went as a doctor, and he says it would be really hard to convert the people in Kashmir, because both are rooted, right? So the Shaivites believe in their Hindus believe in Shiva and their Hinduic rituals. And then he says the invaders, the Islamic invaders, they also believe in the great. So he had chat with, when they are bandaging people, so he's chatting with these patients, and he says they also believe in the supremacy of Islam. But I think it would be easier to convert Hindus because they believe in dialogue. So when I'm talking, they are talking back, and they are actually talking about. But when I talked with the
Amit, I think there's something.
Yeah, when I talk with my Muslim patients, they do not respond well with dialogue. So it's kind of hatred, and that's his views. We can obviously question, because he's writing his diaries for his audience, right? So back home in England, where he wants to tell how to go about conversion, because these texts are written for the future preachers who are coming, so they will learn from the problems these people face. So the history has similar problem. If you're writing history, and if you're whitewashing history to just appease one particular kind of audience, we will have a mess like Kashmir is today, because no one told anyone facts, either politicians, journalists.
Yeah.
Yep, go on, Pallavi.
I would just like to add here as well that the word Aryan was created. Nazis created this theory of Aryan race, which a lot of evidence is showing is totally false, dishonest, and I think it's very baffling and very disturbing that false theory kind of propagate. It's shown as, there's a debate going on, so basically people who propagate this theory are siding with Hitler's Nazi propaganda. Jay, your concluding thoughts?
I'm kind of too disturbed to respond to this. The only thing which I can say is that we really need to work harder than what we are doing. And this is a call for all the researchers and the journalists and everyone else in the field of information, or mass information, or educating people, or trying to get things done, that these propagandas are able to come on the stage and say what they are saying, because we have not given the opportunity for people to have those documents in their hand and say that, no, what you are saying is not true. And it has to reach to each and every person via video, podcast, or a text document like Bible has, like any other religious document has, like Gita you keep at home. Same way it has to be with you to prove. You have to have a fair understanding of the facts that, look, this is the document I refer to. I don't listen to your propagandas. I don't listen to your lies. I don't listen to your genocide denials. This is what I listen to. And these people, I'm not for cancel culture or anything. I am always for dialogue. But people like Nadav Lapid should not be given platform anywhere, wherever we can stop this to happen. It should be happening.
Right.
Pallavi?
Yeah. And Ashwini, your concluding remarks.
My concluding remarks are that Kashmir Files, sometimes truth is so difficult for the other person, especially truth, which shakes your core, which shakes you mentally, physically, and disturbs you, like Jai said just now. This has to be told again and again. It should not be one of the Kashmir Files, because the human psyche, human nature, we tend to forget things. Kashmir Files has done a wonderful job, but I think we will, as a Kashmiri community, I'm saying member of Kashmiri community, I'm saying we need more people like you on this panel to kind of raise this issue again and again, because as I said, it should not be a one-off thing that somebody like Vivek has done. I really appreciate, on behalf of the entire Kashmiri community, what you are doing for us in terms of supporting us, and whatever you are doing is fact, is not like this gentleman, whatever his name is, Nadav, who, I don't know, as I said, I'll be very honest here, might have been paid by someone to make these kind of remarks. So thank you for all your honesty, on your truthfulness, and all your help that you are providing to our community, and we are so grateful to you. But we need to get head on with all these kind of guys who are calling the facts and the atrocities that has happened to Kashmiris something as as uncivilized as vulgar propaganda, the word that he used.
Yeah, Sarah. Now, just lastly, I'll come to you. That that history should be on facts, not on opinions, not on ideologies, not on propaganda. It should be based on facts, and there are certain facts, which are available, which are beyond contention, which are beyond doubt. Where do we go from here? How do we create this ecosystem where history is and things which are in recent history are brought to light? How do we do, whether it's the government or academia? How does that happen?
Well, you've just talked about history, and then you've talked about recent history. So it's actually contemporary. So people are still being shot in Kashmir for the same reasons that they were being shot before, except they have new lingo. That is, this person was a Hindutva stooge. So monitoring and tracking the types of language that are used today. This is a Hindutva stooge. There are Hindutva Zionist alliances, Hindutva infiltration. These are types of genocidal language that continue in our academic debates today. And those who question those debates are, bullied. You've probably all seen it: cyberbullied, threatened, harassed, intimidated. They will dox you. That's if you're in Australia. Now, why should Australian academics be experiencing this? Just for simply stating the same types of facts which you would see in this Rahul Pandita book, who happens to be on the other side of the propaganda now. So if you want to look at history, I think it's a good start to read The Making of Kashmir by Shanalika Kaul, and you can go through her references. She's done a detailed study of the Raj Tarangani. She has taken into account all of the different historians, travelling scholars, And she's also made a number of arguments that totally change the paradigm of thinking about ancient India. And they're very important paradigm changes. India wasn't an isolated place. She explains how it was like, she says that the Sanskrit was the vernacular in that particular cosmopolitan region because there was so much trade going on. There were universities, there were people traveling, from all over the world to come to Kashmir and learn from their scholars. So, and, passing through to trade through the whole ancient world. So India existed. India was on their maps. India was known as India, Indica, Indus. These scholars who are talking about Kashmir, also talking about Palestine and trying to formulate conspiracy theories, need to be called out because this type of logic is logic of genocide. It's very dangerous, and it has led to violence. We just saw violence on the streets in Leicester with the same type of rhetoric, and we're still seeing the media reproducing this rhetoric. Just because these propagandists have the upper hand doesn't make it right. Truth isn't decided by popular vote. And we do know that the conquerors do write the history. So why is it that we're listening to this type of popular narrative? Listen to the underdogs and read. Start with Shanalika Kaul and then take her references and interrogate them. If you don't believe it, interrogate them. Read them yourself. This is how it's done. And then you'll be able to see the lies that have been told by this set of scholar activists. They're not scholars. They're propagandists and activists. That's not our job as scholars. Yeah, like Amit said, our job is to report. Our job is to document. Our job is sometimes to comment. So I'm making a comment on what I've read that's been reported and saying there's something very, very wrong and it needs to be corrected. So someone needs to invest, and that's going to cost millions of dollars. So we need to take this seriously. This isn't a joke. The Kashmir Pandit community is facing extinction, cultural genocide. This is something that needs to be dealt with in our generation now. It can't be left until the next generation. Every generation of children that are not raised in Kashmir, they lose their culture, right. And that's part of the process of cultural genocide and ethnic cleansing and genocide. Because once they've lost their culture, they're no longer ethnically Kashmiri because they haven't been able to raise their children and to bring up their Kashmiri children in Kashmir. Then 2 or 3 generations and it's gone. I don't want to stand by. I will fight to the death. I will fight to my last breath to make sure that doesn't happen.
Sarah, thank you so much. And I will conclude this by saying that the name Kashmir comes from the name of sage Hindu Kashyap. That's where the name Kashmir comes from. Kashmiri Shaivism is an important part of the Hindu philosophical history, and these are facts that people have to know. And it is also very important for international Australians to know that in a secular republic, Pakistan is an Islamic state, and that's how Pakistan was created, because some people wanted an Islamic state. They didn't want to live in a secular republic. So I think all these factors are important to understand that terrorism in Kashmir, the kind of Kashmir Hindus, the overall violence that has taken place there, for so many decades, and hopefully it will be addressed. Hopefully we will have everlasting peace in Kashmir, so that all Kashmiris can go and live there, and that culture will stay alive for. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.